Welcome to the Caribbean Property Investing Podcast, where we share real-life experiences for successful Caribbean property entrepreneurs. Learn about their successes, challenges, and strategies to help you create your plan for financial freedom. Now let's get started.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Caribbean Property Investing Podcast. We want to thank everyone who downloaded our podcast, who watched on IG, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, for that support, for the first episode. Between the promo and episode 1, we probably had something like 13 to 14,000 views, and the feedback has been phenomenal. We knew that there was an appetite for this content because we are passionate about it. I'm passionate about it. But the response that we received was overwhelming, from as far as the Bahamas north and as far south as Grenada. Interestingly, the idea for the second episode was around a couple getting one mortgage at a time, building a house, living in it, then selling it, and doing the process over and over again. But we got some feedback from a professional woman who said, expressed a valid opinion that not many people can get a partner, not even a relative or friend, to come together to invest in property. And she really wanted us to start almost at the beginning. What's the simplest form or simplest way you can get into property investing? Probably most affordable as well. And so today, on this show, we have a good friend of mine who inspired me, who impressed me with his commitment, his passion, his discipline, and his area in property investing specialization so far was land development. You're going to hear a lot more about his story. And without further ado, again, let me introduce to you Virgil Henry. Virgil, welcome to the podcast.
Anselm, thanks for having me. Appreciate being brought on here. Hopefully what I can share can influence some people and help change lives.
So Virgil, sorry. Tell us about yourself, a little of your background.
Okay, well, you know me from Hess, obviously. You were my teacher at Hess.
Oh man,
You're very hard on us during basketball. Well, it's the truth. I went to Hess, and then I did pretty well at Hess, and I went to the mall, and I had no idea what I wanted to do with myself.
And for persons who don't know what Hess
myself
is, Hess is in St. Lucia, so probably might
Oh,
tell them
sorry.
that.
I'm a solution. More precisely, I'm from Babon. I'm a Babonian. But again, when I went to A level, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I chose random subjects, but I found it very difficult to focus on any particular one thing. So I made it through. But when I finished with A level, again, the ideas are like, where you want to work? What kind of job do you want? And I struggled with that for a while because I truly did not know what I wanted to do. I hadn't thought about it going through school. So again, I struggled with that for a while, but eventually I started realizing that I had a passion for entrepreneurial things, essentially businesses. I tried my hands at a few things. Some worked, a lot failed, but for each one, I had a good opportunity to learn a lesson and improve on the next challenge.
What were some of those things you tried? What are some of those things that you tried?
I tried working with a friend of mine doing a computer parts and computer store business. It started off okay. It was a struggle initially, but we started going okay. But then, as happens without proper contracts, that didn't work out very well. We had a bumping of heads, and that completely fell on the wayside. So I took some time being a beach bum, essentially. I'd go by the beach Monday to Friday. And eventually, because of relationships, which are very important in life, I had a friend call me and say, hey, do you want to come help me with a project at Bryden's at the time? And I was like, Bryden's? I don't want to work at Bryden's. But it gave me a good opportunity to learn and to grow. And a year later, obviously, I moved on to digital, and the rest, as you know, probably is the history. So,
Well, I know. So for the benefit of
story.
our regional international audience, so Bryden's is one of the largest, I guess, import distributors in the island. So tell us about your time at Digital, some of the areas you worked in.
Um, so digital for me was where I really grew up. I mean, I got to meet some people who were really interesting, really sharp minds. Some of them who to this day still have influence on my life in terms of what I do as a family man. Obviously, I'm a husband, a father, man of faith. That's most important to me. But at digital, it just kind of opened my mind up to the possibility that the world wasn't as small and as confined as I thought it was being in the island. That there are ways to gain wealth and to make wealth so that your family has a better level of living, but also that you can impact lives and help people. And that has also been very, very important to myself and my wife. So beyond just obviously the usual, what comes to telecoms, as you know, because you're also in there, selling handsets, getting connections, there is the aspect of socializing and meeting people and influencing people's lives. And that again just opened me up to, hey, how can I be more useful to people beyond just selling my handset? Can I help them improve their lives? And again, there's a lot I learned from digital. 17 years in telecoms, there's a lot that I can't put all together in this podcast, obviously.
And what did that desire of yours to help people, what did that lead to? And how did you end up in the South Pacific?
All right. So the desire to help, again, you mentioned in the first video, reading the book Reach That Pod. One of my friends, Marvin, I think it was, and you probably mentioned around the same time, told me about Reach That Pod, and I was like, I don't want to read a book. But when I started reading the book, after the first probably 5 pages, I realized like I gotta finish this book, and it
Wow.
just changed my mind to the way I saw things. Um, it just made me realize I don't have to work hard because I had this concept from my grandparents and my parents that you got to work hard. Now, they're very good teachers. To this day, I honor them for what they instilled in me. But I mean, the idea of working for 50 years to get a retirement package, a pension package, and then try to enjoy life then rather than enjoy it as you go through life didn't quite sit well with me. So the book just made me realize that there are ways of getting to enjoy life, experience life now. Because every day, I say every day is extra because no one's guaranteed to live till they're 50 or 60 and retire. So after I read the book, I was like, okay, this thing sounds interesting, but I don't have enough money to get into land development. I mean, I grew up in essentially a small family up in Barbados. That's in the countryside in the country. Um, and I was like, okay, how do I go about doing this? So my first idea was, well, one, I'm going to need a house for myself. And my mom has kind of driven into me, you're a young man, get a home. So I found this
Place to
piece of land.
live.
It was really small view. And I was like, I'll take it. I'll build, on pillars. I'll build downstairs eventually and rent it out. But the lady I was about to buy from, she passed away. Um, so I was like, okay, what do I do now? Kids contacted me and said, hey, we heard you were interested in buying the land. I was like, yeah, I wanted to buy like a
Who
7,000
contacted
square foot
you?
lot.
Who contacted you? Somebody else? Who
The
contacted you?
ladies, her kids, because they
Her
had
kids. Okay.
seen the documents, I guess, at the house. And I was like, yeah, I wanted to buy 7,000 square feet. They were like, no, well, it's 4 acres. We don't want to break it up. We want to sell the entire 4 acres. So I'm
Wow.
like, I can't afford 4 acres. So, I mean, I struggled with it for about 2, 3 weeks, and I was going to call him and say no. But I spoke to my dad about it, and thankfully he's like, if you want it, I'll help you buy it. And I was like, okay. But he said, but you're paying the mortgage yourself. So I went with it anyway. My dad being on there helped me um, essentially have enough of income for the banks to approve the loan. And when I got it, I started freaking out the very next day because I'm like, this mortgage payment is more than my salary.
Oh my
And
God.
I remember, I remember when you said you were buying land initially just to sit on. You like that's not a very good idea. So luckily, I had been disciplined again by my mom to save. So while I was working at Digital, I was saving quite a bit. So I had money set aside. I was able to cover the loan for the first, I'd say, year and a half while you get all the planning approvals, Lucia, health, Ministry of Health, all the little things that it takes in the background that people don't know about to get this going.
Stick up in. One second. So you wanted 7,000 square feet of land. Uh, the lady who passed away, her kids approached you and said, "Hey, we're not going to break it up. We're going to sell you 7,000. Sorry, 4 acres. 4 acres. 4 acres instead
Right.
of 7,000 square feet of land. In terms of the multiple, how much more, how many times more were the 4 acres compared to the 7,000 square feet? Like 5 times more, 6 times more?
More like 7. I mean,
Okay,
luckily
okay,
they give
hold
it
on,
to me
hold
at
on
a
there.
at a decent price. Yeah.
So now you have to you now have to take a loan for 7 times more what you originally wanted. Spoke to your dad, he said,
Yeah.
okay, let's do it. In essence, he was going to co-sign the loan and be your guarantor for your loan.
That's
My
what he
my
did. Yeah.
mom actually co-signed my student loan for me. Of course, I didn't know what that meant, and she made me feel like I was responsible. But later on, I realized that actually, if I end up paying a loan, the bank is going to go after her. But she tricked me.
Yeah.
You
You're
know,
right.
I felt responsible for that loan, which in fact that's the right thing to do because it's for you. You are responsible for it. So now you have 4 acres of land. You know nothing about development. So how did you know where to start, what to cut, how to cut it to, who to target?
Listen,
How did you go through that process?
I was naive. I figured I could buy the land, just cut it up quick, and sell it in a month. Right.
Okay.
So when I got it, luckily the real estate guy who sold it to me just gave me some little guidelines. And again, being out there sell and just having relationships, I was able to meet some people who were like, hey, I'm doing a small project as well. These are the steps you need to follow. Contact this person at the Ministry of Infrastructure so you can get some guidelines. What I did not expect, obviously, was that the entire approval process, it probably took about a year and a half.
Another
Because there
one
were
month
little
that you
things
like you
that,
said. Another 1 month.
no. So I saw my savings slowly start disappearing. I started freaking out. I was like, pretty soon I'm going to have no money in there. But God is good. I mean, I had faith that it was going to work out. I stuck with it. And after a year and a half, we got permission to sell 5 lots out of what eventually became 20 lots.
So did you cut all 20 time, or you did it in phases?
No, at the time, because I didn't have access to funds, I worked with a real surveyor who just charged me for the first 5 and the road, cutting out the road. Planning was pretty good. They allowed me to sell the first 5 lots before I put the infrastructure in. So I used those funds to get the road in and get the water and essentially everything that was required, drainage and stuff like that, to get the rest released for sale.
Yeah, but
Go
what
ahead.
I'm thinking of was when you said okay, you wanted that 7,000 square feet, and he said no, you can get 4 acres. Did you think about your target market? Who are you going to sell to? What price you're going to sell it? What's the competing prices in the area in the area around you?
I did. Okay, so because I'm from the country, right, I was hearing this little whispers about prices in the north, you know, $18, $20 of capacity. And I'm like, there's no way any of the people
Okay.
I grew up with can afford that land. So
Okay.
I bought land pretty close to home. And I was like, if I can get the land cut and keep it to $10 to $12, which is my target, then I could get my friends who I know are going to need a home pretty soon, and people in that low to middle income range initially, to get own a piece of land. So when I got to go, and the very first piece I sold actually was to a very good friend of mine, and I mean I won't say the price that he picked for it, but he got a steal out of it because I wanted to see him and his family have access to property. So beyond making the money to help my family and stuff, I believe that you can also help people as well sometimes with the project that you do. So for me, that was very, very important. And I knew that there was a target range of people who were not making cable and wireless type money for those who work there, who wanted to buy a small lot. So that was my target group. I never looked at high income earners with that particular property. I knew that it would be for I was looking at people with families, people who wanted a 5 to 6,000 square foot lot, and those are people who actually end up buying all the lots.
But there are many people who believe that you cannot be running scared of not being able to meet your mortgage payments while at the same time thinking of, well, how can I keep my price as low as possible to help people? So it is possible and to do both.
It is possible to do, but I think it's about buying right. If you buy at the right price, then that allows you the flexibility to do that. I had looked at several properties before, and while they were in great locations, the price would not have allowed me to be as flexible and target at the time I wanted to target. So I'd say if you're going to get into that space, like I think you always tell me that as well. The first thing you do is you got to buy at the right price. I mean, that's when you have all the
That's the
control,
only
as you know.
time. That's the only time in the real estate process you have control. Only time is buying. At no other time do you have full control of the process.
Correct.
Only when you're buying. So you have to buy below market value. That's the number
Correct.
one rule in real estate, property investing.
Yeah.
So Virgil, what was the average price of a lot, if you can recall, at the time?
Um, I think we sold it for about $65,000 to $70,000. So our
Wow.
lots range from, and we had two lots of 5,000, but everything else was around 6 to 6,500. But yeah, we didn't go much past $10 a square foot because I also had in mind that the people I wanted to help would also have access to limited funds, and the $70,000 would be an easy, not easy, but less challenging mortgage to secure for some people in that
Right.
range. So those
Patience
were
is not one of my virtues, but I've been trying to keep quiet and not ask this question. So I'm thinking numbers, and I'm wondering, okay, well, how many lots would you have had to sold for you to break even? And was that always at the forefront of your mind? When I sell X number of lots, pay off my loan, and then the rest is gravy. What percentage of the lots would you have to sell
uh,
for you to break even? How difficult was that?
at the time it was probably closer to 60% of it because the price of the land wasn't horrible. I mean, it was expensive, it wasn't horrible, but the infrastructure cost um,
Yeah,
is quite high. The road
which you had
is
no
low.
idea about before.
Uh,
You had no idea about
well,
this
no,
infrastructure cost before.
no, I didn't know you'd put the road in. I just figured just put something and let's put this drive and do it. But
So
planning,
for all of our listeners and viewers, you do not buy land to develop and subdivide and not know your infrastructure costs. You have to know how much it
correct,
costs to bring water, you have to know how much to bring electricity, and how much it costs to pave the roads and do any walls. You might have to do some water storage based on where you are. There might be a requirement for you to do water
yes,
storage. So so
yes,
so that's why we have this podcast. So Virgil, you will never do that again, right? Buy a piece of land to develop and not know what your infrastructure cost is going to be.
no. So I mean,
Okay.
the first one was a blessing in a sense because I made so many mistakes in the first one that it forced me to learn the right way to do things. And I mean, a lot of it, I gotta say, is because of people who in my life at the time were able to impact me and to guide me. Just things just seem to fall in place into almost like a guided essentially. But after the first one, making the mistakes, learning, we I think we were ready for another challenge essentially. I would say that it's probably easier to do a smaller project, maybe buy something with one lot or two lots and go that way because it requires less from planning and less investment infrastructure. But I don't regret doing it. I mean, the amount we learned and the lives that we knew were impacted, it was worth it.
Plus you got some profit, some surplus in addition to helping change lives, right?
We got, yeah. I mean, yeah, obviously you don't want to go into business and not make money. We
Right.
actually used most of what we did to reinvest into another development. We bought 7 acres, pretty close to the first 4 acres. And we used some of it obviously for our family because there are things that we have 3 kids, so they're expensive. Um, so we spend some of our money on some personal things, helping some people that are really, really close to us and dear to us. But we also took a big chunk of it and reinvested it by buying 7 more acres to take on another challenge, which we're hoping to get started this year.
And I don't want you to just run so fast to the next project. So to our listeners right now, what are some of the key points you wanna share in terms of anyone willing to start off right now? What are some of the things that they need to know?
Um, I'd say if you're going to do land development, especially because it's the more problematic, I'd say, and the more time consuming, you need to have some patience. All right. So everything doesn't happen at your speed. Everything happens at the speed of the approvers, essentially. So you need to be able to write this out. If you're going to buy land for mortgage, you need to make sure that you have enough finances to cover the repayments while you get the approvals in place. You are going to meet snags. It's almost inevitable that there's going to be something that's going to pop up that you're going to have to handle. But also having the right engineer to design your project for you. That's very, very important. Um, just just having relationships. Because like I said, when we built the road for the first one, for instance, the estimated cost was quite high, and we had a neighbor who said, "Hey, I have some natural quarryways that you're gonna need for your road. Just come by. I have an excavator. I'll dig it up. You take how many loads you want, and you pay me at the end." When it was all done, he's like, "Don't worry about it."
Because he saw what you were
But
doing in the community. He saw you were
so what I
helping
was doing
people.
was improving the area. Actually, he ended up
Right.
buying 2 lots from me, actually 3 lots from me, which watered next to his home,
Right.
because he was just happy that the area was no longer just bush. It was turning into a small housing development. So for that, I'm also very thankful that he was able to help. But again, it just goes back to relationships. I mean, treat people well, respect people. You never know when you're going to need someone to help you out as you journey through life, essentially.
And what timelines? Just if you can remember, but just ballpark, like how long did it take you after you start? You said 1 year for approvals, right? How long did it take you
A year
then
and a half thereabouts.
to then a year and a half for the approvals? How long did it take you to break even? When you saw that Lord say, okay, finally, I don't have a loan anymore.
All right, so I'd say the first year and a half, obviously, we were paying off, and then we sold the first 5 lots pretty quickly. I think we sold them within 4 or 5 months, because I sold them about $9 at a time, because I wanted to get money in quickly to start the development of the infrastructure.
Right.
The rest of the lots, it probably took me, I'd say, another year to break even, as in to get to a point where I could not worry about payments anymore, because I had enough money sitting on the account and the loans were automatic. But then one day, I kind of like you, I guess, I had a moment where I realized, wait a minute, my interest is so much more money. Why on earth am I paying just the basic minimum? So I went to the bank and I was like, hey, I'd like to pay off the loan because there's enough money in the account now to do that. And I mean, they resisted me for about 3 months.
There's a
And
typical
finally, I was like,
penalty.
okay,
Yeah, early repayment
there,
penalty.
there was a, yeah, there was a small fee, but to me, it was worth it, because at the end, the
Correct.
amount that you saved in interest, was just, I mean, if you actually use loan automatic calculators, you realize that the interest alone sometimes could be quite high. So we paid that off, and we just took our time with the rest of it. We were in no rush. We had no loans now. We just sell as we go along. But we also travel a lot. My family, again, moved to the South Pacific, as you mentioned earlier, with digital. We did 4 years in Papua New Guinea. And again, just being in places like that make me realize the importance of having financial literacy, just financial freedom as well. So I'll make sure my kids learn this early. I'll make sure they understand that it's not just about going to school, getting good grades, and as the book says, getting a job, but they also need to be able to support themselves through residual income. Even when like you have places I know that you're renting, and when you're sleeping, you're still making money.
Correct.
So I want to get my kids to a point where they can not have to worry about money so much, but also be in a place where they can better help themselves, their families, their communities, the island. I mean, I
Absolutely.
love the Caribbean. So that is what is foremost for me, the freedom so you can be a blessing. So I always like say, we're blessed to be a blessing.
Well, Virgil, I mean, I couldn't have said better myself. Actually, I think you said better than I can ever.
Impossible.
Proud of you, definitely proud of you. And your example actually shows that the philosophy that we have, do good and you get good, is really true. It might not always happen, but the fact that you thought about how you price the lots for that particular area to help the community actually paid off, because you didn't even know that someone living in the area was the owner of large excavation equipment, had quarries that you would eventually need to make a significant reduction in the cost of your infrastructure roads, and that happened.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. I really hope that your story, or some of it, because maybe we'll have to come back for part two, because you talk about this new development, which is 7 acres. You want to understand the thinking for that one. Now that you know what are some of the challenges that you could potentially face from your first experience, certainly I know you will learn from it. So to our listeners, we want to thank you again for watching and listening to episode 2. Some of the key takeaways for me from Virgil's story is that, for him, it was comfortable to live or to invest close to where he lives, the community that he knew. But more than just making money, one of his objectives was to improve the lives of the people in that area by improving the infrastructure, giving them housing opportunities which otherwise would not be available. $9 a square foot. I don't remember when was the last time I did that. And it was just a couple of years ago he would have done that development. Some key things to remember. You need to obviously know what your overall infrastructure costs. You need to know what's the demand, potential demand in that area. Obviously, building news community. You also need to have an idea of how long you think it would take you to sell those lots based on your projected demand. So 3 years is a long time for a typical investor, but not necessarily in developmental circles, in the developmental process, because there are developers worldwide in the Caribbean. They'll tell you it might take 2 years, to get approval for your own development. So key takeaways, as we said, know your area, know comparables, know your costs, know your customer, and be prepared to have that delay and have some cash flow or some safe stash cash in the back. It helps to have a father or a relative to co-sign your loan, but in the end, you give it back and you discipline, you committed, it all comes together. We're not saying that there won't be challenges, but the most important characteristic that you must have as a property investor is dedication or commitment and sticking to it till the end. So until next time, viewers, listeners, we want to thank you for watching the show again. You can get us on all major podcasts and platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google, Stitcher. Check us out on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on IG, and of course at CaribbeanPropertyInvesting.com. See you next week.
Congratulations and thank you for tuning in to the Caribbean's first property investing podcast. We want to help Caribbean people create wealth and achieve financial freedom through property investing. Our show provides general advice based on personal experiences and is for educational purposes only. For more information, resources, and past episodes, visit us at CaribbeanPropertyInvesting.com. Remember to click the subscribe button so you never miss a show. Let's go.